So the astrology of the week of November 22nd, 2021 through 28 November 2021 has us in this strange land between eclipses. It's like we're walking in this kind of interesting space. And what happens this week is that we get both Mercury and the Sun moving into Sagittarius and activating the sign of Sagittarius, where this solar eclipse will happen in a few days. And so we're here in this kind of expansive mode, the outward expansive mode of Sagittarius, but yet it is filtering through this kind of strangeness of reality and the kind of strange nature of what we have incarnated into. Let's get into the charts. Let's get into the astrology. My name is S.J. Anderson. Welcome here. Welcome to my channel. Every week I take a little bit of a deep dive into the astrology of the week. Try to get a feel for the planetary energies, the space weather as some call it, to try to just give you something to be aware of as you're in your life and going through your, the trials and tribulations of the human experience, the highs and the lows, the loves, the loss, all of that. Having knowledge of the astrological configurations and their symbolism can inform and greatly kind of support our search for meaning and our search for kind of understanding our lives. It can really add value to the process by which we navigate this realm. And what I'll do in the video shortly, just to quickly say here, one, I like to look at the planets, their aspects and their sign changes, retrograde stations or direct stations. Two, I'll go into the moon's sign changes. We examine the moon, the very potent moon. The third thing I'll do is I'm going to grab two charts for this week and do a little bit of a deep dive to these charts that I find to be useful to know about and to understand. And then the fourth thing is I'll pull a tarot card, a cartomancy card, and we will just see that symbol, see if that symbol can help us interact or understand. So, just here in the introduction, we had this lunar eclipse, didn't we? Wow, what a powerful lunar eclipse. I don't know if you experience this, but sometimes with eclipses, there's a physical expression. And I talked to several people, and I experienced this myself, of just physically, it was literally during that eclipse and in the period right before and after, of just my physical body needed rest. I mean, I went down and was just having to kind of get the rejuvenation that can only come from stopping and resting. So if you're taking extra naps or needing to support your physical body in ways that maybe we weren't having to, or you weren't having to earlier in the week, just know the eclipse can have that effect. And a lunar eclipse, the symbol of it, the moon in our astrological tradition, the body, it's the main planetary point that we associate with the physical body. And so to have that eclipse, it's blocking out the body, maybe separating us from our bodies in a way, or maybe I feel like there was just stuff being processed in my body, and that in order to fully be with that, it kind of forced me to just give it attention. And so I was just doing a lot of rest. And actually today I went down for a nap and I woke up. This video, I'm recording it a little late, so better late than never. Excited about everything this week, but it's part of it was my eclipse processing. Just my sleep has been a little bit more of a need for me. So, that happened on Friday. Here we are on Sunday, and we're now in between this eclipse land. And just to say, this solar eclipse that's coming, I think is a lot easier, and it's a lot more of a solar eclipse of integration of certain cycles that are ending. There's two big cycles that are coming to an end. They're both related to Jupiter and in the rest of 2021, at the end of 2021. And this is a big deal. These intermediate term cycles that astrology maps for us, when they end or begin, it really changes the outward reality and can change our lives dramatically. But those two cycles are the eclipse series that we've had in Sagittarius, with the South Node transiting through Sagittarius, Ketu. That the final eclipse there is on December 3rd, December 4th, depending on where you are. And so we're putting the finishing touches on a series of Jupiter-ruled eclipses that saw Jupiter very much hampered during the period where it ruled these eclipses. Jupiter was having to filter through Saturn. Particularly in Capricorn, Jupiter is very much under pressure, and then in Aquarius less so, but still filtering through the restrictive features of Saturn that aren't don't quite exactly jibe always with what Jupiter tries to do. Expand, joy, abundance, truth, wisdom. Saturn can sometimes restrict. It's a different way into truth. It's a restrictive, isolating way into kind of higher truth. And so those energies, and then the South Node can drain the power out of a sign, spiritualizes it. And so those two cycles, the eclipse cycles in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, finishes out. No more eclipses there. Now the South Node will take another few weeks to leave Sagittarius. That happens in January. But by February, Jupiter will not have the responsibility of ruling this very potent eclipse energy. That's finished for Jupiter. And by January, and by February, and this happens actually December 2021, Jupiter leaves Aquarius. No more Saturn-ruled Jupiter. So in terms of Jupiter in the sky, we're all having a big shift that's coming up very, very soon in this December, January moment. And it's quite exciting because Jupiter is one of the benefic planets, so-called, in this system. It is the planet that can really unleash things like hope and freedom and optimism and really positive shifts and changes. And I think that in our personal lives we'll feel it in the houses that are ruled by Jupiter, and then in the collective I think we're going to feel it. I think we're on the cusp of some turning points here with the collective struggles we've all been going through. So that's the context for where we're at, and then we bring it down to this week. We're still processing. We're still, in this strange world that eclipses trigger up. And I had one tweet this week. I'm a big fan of Philip K. Dick. Love his work, love his novels. He's got a novel called Time Out of Joint. I haven't read that one, but I love the title. And this is what eclipses can sometimes feel like. It's like, what is time? Stopping and starting of our experience of maybe linear time getting, truncated or inverted. You might find you're having intense dreams. You might find you're feeling deja vu, or a sense of, what is this? I kind of know this. Or the other one, I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. It's deja vu or something like this. This is the sense of I don't know where I am, or I haven't been here, kind of an amnesia. But there can be this like a strangeness in the relationship with time. And I was seeing people describe how 2021 has gone by like a blink. And when they said that, I forgot who it was, I was reflecting, 2021 has gone by in a blaze, whereas 2020 to me felt like an eternity. So time is really subjective, isn't it? And I think eclipses can bring out that feel. So here we are, and we're building now towards the Sagittarius solar eclipse, the final one in Sagittarius. And this week we get the Sun and Mercury moving into Sagittarius. Let's shift now. That's the introduction. Let's shift now and look at this week, because that is the big, big story here. Look at this. You've got the Sun right here in hours on Monday, early morning in Central Europe, 3:33. If for you numerologists out there, angel number, angel number watch. I'm not sure if that's an angel number. I don't mean to mock the numerology or anything like that. These can be potent synchronicities for sure, and it is 3:33. Sun comes into Sagittarius. What we love about this as astrologers is that this is one of the three signs that the Sun has dignity in. The exaltation of the Sun is in Aries, the domicile rulership of the Sun is in Leo, but that fire trine has the Sun ruling Sagittarius by day triplicity rulership. So the daytime when it's warm, the Sun gets great power in Sagittarius. I think this is an extremely important part of why I think the solar eclipse is a little bit more auspicious and less intense than the lunar eclipse we just went through. Remember that lunar eclipse had Saturn and Mars angular to the moon, and the moon was on that intense star Algol. This doesn't have those configurations. Mars is not a part of, is not making any aspect to the solar eclipse, and Saturn is in that comfortable sextile. Now eclipses themselves can sometimes destabilize often the Sun, so it's not like this is full-on auspicious green lights here for the Sun, but it is a little bit of a softer energy. The Sun is supported here, and especially before the eclipse and then after its time in Sagittarius, we have this really, really strong Sun. Your consciousness, the perceptive powers, the organ of mental perception, the Vedic Valens phrase to describe the Sun. So I think we can perceive here, and you just think about the collective movements. Sagittarius is building up toward the Christmas celebration, the New Year celebration. You might think about the winter solstice celebrations or summer solstice if you're down under. Those kind of turning points for the sun, where the sun is at its smallest in the northern hemisphere, or its most southern point. Even in the southern hemisphere, the sun is at its most southern point. And that symbol that the sun is down and then it's going to rise again after the winter solstice, that's a very, we're preparing for that. And I like that the sun has strong dignity in the period before that moment, because when Sagittarius season ends, that's the point where the sun is at its lowest point. So it's almost like the sun is in a moment of its lowest point. Like I said, it gets power knowing, I think, that it's about to turn and start rising, getting higher in the sky, further north, everywhere in the world. It just means in the northern hemisphere we get more heat. In the southern hemisphere you'll be descending into winter, the slow descent into fall and winter. So, but that's part of what we can do. You know, how are we going to prepare for? It's a winding down time, actually. That's kind of what I think about the benefit here, where we can bring our consciousness into this sort of cocoon-like period to wait for that rebirth. And you see it all over the world. People take time off on Thanksgiving. That's a harvest festival. You've got the Christmas celebrations that can kind of sometimes come in December, where people take time off. I know I'm taking some time off in December. So and what does that leave space for? If you leave the outer world and kind of retract in, the consciousness has room to breathe and give attention to things that maybe have been needing attention. So that's where the selfhood that the sun can imply and the consciousness of the sun has this great strength as we kind of wind down to prepare for this symbolic rebirth. So that happens on Monday. Very cool, very powerful. And then Mercury, I'll just say here, on a Wednesday will follow the sun, shortly follow the sun, of 1636 here in Central Europe, or 4:36 p.m. And so Mercury joins the sun, the powers of the expression and of the analytics that then combine with consciousness to make a very potent combination. I love Sun-Mercury mixes because we can perceive and then express, feel and kind of take in and then write about it or analyze it. They very much work together, and they follow each other. There's a reason why the Sun and Mercury are always following so close, because they very much support each other, and they're kind of the same topic, right? Is how we perceive and know. A little bit different types of that perceptive knowledge, but very similar. So that happens on Wednesday, so by the end of the week here, we've got these two powerful planets of perception and knowledge and communication and expression, in a way, joined in Sagittarius, the expansive fire sign ruled by Jupiter. Now, I want to say a couple more things. Right after both of these planets ingress into Sagittarius, they meet the South Node, they meet Ketu. And what I think this does is that this week in particular we're going to keep the high pitch, the maybe fever pitch we're dealing with the fire sign, but just the energy of the eclipse season is not going to dissipate. We get this Sun-Ketu conjunction once a year, right here on Monday, hours after the ingress. And Ketu is a very spiritual point. So with eclipses, there's two ways to kind of analyze. One is literally, where does the eclipse happen? What sign is that eclipse happening in? But the other is the point, Ketu or Rahu, the north and south nodes. They're independent of the eclipses. The eclipses always happen within a degree range. Solar and lunar have a little bit of a degree difference of their degree range, but it's something like 12 or 17 degrees. When you have a new moon or full moon, a syzygy, near those eclipse points, you get the eclipses. But those eclipse points are at a different place in the sky than the actual eclipses most often. And so they themselves imbue and embody and kind of inject the eclipse vibe whenever planets hit them, even when it's not an eclipse season. And we get that as we're building here to the solar eclipse not this week, but next week, we get the sun here filtering directly with Ketu. So I think we're going to stay pitched up here. Not only are we building to the solar eclipse, but we hit Ketu this week with both the Sun and Mercury. You might think about, what do I have written here? Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Deep into the mystery this week with the tail of the snake. That's what Ketu is. So excretion without knowing why. This is the tail end of the symbolic snake that are the nodes, and the lunar nodes, the eclipse points, and it's the excretion point. That's why a lot of astrologers will talk about Ketu or the South Node draining. We're letting go and kind of giving away things. The South Node forces us sometimes to let go of the areas where it's navigating in our chart, and it requires trust and faith. That's the key point here, because sometimes we can't know, why are things being taken away from me? Why did this leave my life? Why am I in this transition state? Sometimes we can't know. That's the nature of what I was saying earlier, the time out of joint sense of eclipses. But we have to just trust, like, all right, I trust the divine forces of reality. Thank you, universe, for the gifts that you have bestowed on me. You know, I just drank a beautiful glass of tea. I mean, I'm so grateful for that, just to be able to wake up and make a tea and drink it. Just those little things, you know, give me great sense of being loved, you know, and in this great container of divine love, I believe we're all held in that. We can carry that torch even when things get strange, or even when things are being taken, so-called, or lessened in our lives, areas of our lives that, you know, aren't quite as fully, you know, fleshed out yet, let's say. So that's the key point here, is that there may be a sense of requiring a trust and a faith during this strange period, and it gets directly activated with Ketu this week. And you may even want to write. I love writing. I'm advocating this almost in every video now. You've seen this a lot, but really opening up those journal pages and kind of writing your desires or prayers. You can write prayers. I love that style of using Mercury. Mercury is the planet that symbolizes communication with the gods, aka esoteric, so-called occult esoteric practices. But you can use the written word to encapsulate that message. You know, there's people that use sigils. It's not quite a written word, but it's symbolic, that you use the pen to express and combine symbols to empower a symbol. Well, it's the same with words. I mean, you can just say, you know, God, thank you, I love you, gratitude list for this tea, like a, you know, this is what's on my heart. That's my favorite kind of trigger phrase. And then just write things down, send them out to the gods. I always think of humility as being important with that, and you know, a humble supplication where there's a sense of the kind of divine encasement rather than some kind of you know, direct orders. I don't feel like that's the right way to approach the kind of godlike energy, and that's a whole separate video, styles of prayer. Let me come back here. So that's what I have here, and then I have here, we talked about the physical impacts of eclipses already. Just know your body may be experiencing oddity, especially after this lunar eclipse. But I have here Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and this is another thing that's big this week. What is Sagittarius? Sometimes the transiting sky is very good to explore the symbolism of a sign, even the maybe modern mythology around a sign or the modern stereotype. That can be highly useful. You know, Sagittarius, people will talk about the traveling that comes with Sagittarius. This is where the 12th letter alphabet system that gets so maligned by astrologers, I really can see some of the resonance with it sometimes. And I do think 9th house Sagittarius, there is some overlap. And this is where that 12-letter alphabet maybe can have some use. Look, it has use for certain schools of astrology. I green light it completely because they've developed whole systems around it. But you do think about Jupiter in ancient texts. It's a mutable sign, so you're moving, right, between states. That's travel. Jupiter can be, I'm talking about Jupiter now, but religious ideas or religious texts, that's a 9th house signification. I'm going to throw out the 9th house now, but I just wanted to throw that in case you're familiar with those topics. Maybe that triggers something here. But we think about travel, religion, idea, moving into the world, even speaking to crowds. I think about like some of these religious revivals. I was reading about Pentecostalism this week. Just met some friends that are involved in that. And these kind of large religious kind of events where people can be inspired. That's all Sagittarian energy. That's the hope and the expansion that Jupiter brings, sometimes with religious connotation, certainly knowledge and wisdom. So we're feeling that with Sagittarius, right? We get that, a dose of that now with the Sun and Mercury there. And what do I have here? We're expanding here as well. And this is the key point. Anytime you want to look at a sign, where is the ruler of the sign in the transiting sky? Well, Jupiter's in Aquarius. What's Jupiter doing? It's direct now. It's moving faster. It's now moving headlong into Pisces. It's kind of rushing home. You think about like a finish line symbol. Jupiter is like got its arms extended. You see that line in the race, and it's going to cross and trigger that line here late December and come home and then collapse into home into Pisces. So symbolically, the ruler of Sagittarius is moving in a kind of an expanded, adventurous energy. And that, I think, can define this Sagittarius season. Now, the eclipse comes and it kind of maybe inverts that or gives us direct lessons or fated lessons around those themes. But let the eclipse overtake us. What do we need to be shown related to the kind of idea sets or religious values or the impassioned beliefs? This is a fire sign about the world. Worldviews might be the phrase. What are we going to be shown here by these eclipses around the Jupiterian themes? And that is, I think, a big part of the week and how this week will unfold. So let's shift now. Let's shift to the moon and see what the moon is doing. The moon here has a very interesting, it's in its waning phase. So we have the eclipse, now the moon settles and wanes and rests. I need the rest after that lunar eclipse. Boy, I'm gonna be doing a lot of rest this week and into December. Can't wait to just convalesce and heal and tend to things that need tending. Waning cycles, they say, are good for decrease or elimination, just like the South Node. And I think that's a resonance this week. It brings that to a theme of what do we want to kind of excrete or remove from our lives. We can use this waning cycle and this South Node activation to feel into that. And maybe a good time for some purging or letting things go just with attitudinally and kind of spiritually. Sometimes they say practice letting go or let go and let God. You've heard that phrase maybe. Just surrender into the kind of seas of life or the seas of change. And so maybe it's more of an inner letting go for whatever you're going through, whatever you're grieving or processing, or a physical letting go. So they can support each other. But what I love about this week, so right on Monday, right after the Sun enters Sagittarius, the moon comes into Cancer. This is my favorite moon transit this week. It guides this first period in between eclipses. Pretty quickly after this lunar eclipse, we get the moon now coming to Cancer to gain energy. Moon was just eclipsed. Now it gets to kind of heal in its home sign, and we can think about healing in our homes, with this waning moon in Cancer. I have here, it's a sweet, restful moon. What are you letting go of now? Just what I described. It's funny, sometimes I write this stuff and then I just start talking to the camera and I say the same things. That's how there's you can see how my ideas sort of express themselves, whether it's on the fly or through a prepared writing. But I have here the whole thing about letting go, which I just communicated on. Comfort, and I want to come back to these physical impacts of eclipses. Taking time to just get the comfort you need, even if you're working and really busy right now. Taking a few moments or 15-minute power nap. Get under those covers and just pray and give yourself good self-talk to heal, make yourself comfortable. So that happens with the Cancer moon. We'll talk about that chart. That's one of the ones I'm going to examine in depth. Then the Leo moon comes. This will happen on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday through Saturday, early Saturday morning here in Central Europe. We have that Leo moon. We're activating again the fixed cross in the transiting sky, Saturn, Mars, and now this Leo moon. I think it'll be, some more of the tense experiences of this whole period this fall gets activated this week. These moons, these fixed moons have not been the easiest of energies. So be prepared for that. It might be, nice to get ready early in the week, make yourself comfortable, and then kind of, incoming, we know that this fixed moon is going to hit. So that's midweek, and then finally on Saturday and then Sunday, so all week when we'll have a Virgo moon. Mercury is in Sagittarius, the sign of its exile and fall, because the planet Mercury is exalted and rules Virgo. These Sagittarius Mercuries, they're kind of cool actually, or a Pisces Mercury. I'm partial, I have a Pisces Mercury. What happens is that the need to dot every I and cross every T and be so orderly to a fault maybe, that all gets thrown to the wind. And so it almost unleashes and frees the Mercury to go on long tangents and speak freely, kind of like I do in these videos. Just speak and let loose, and maybe not have to be so analytical and sort of traditionally organized. It's kind of a disorganized vibe where you can sort of let loose. You should have seen some of my notes as a kid in school. Boy, no one could read it. It was all just basically chicken scratch to everybody, but I had my own systems for organizing thoughts. Particularly, I studied math. That's the other thing. These Pisces Mercuries, it's not like you can't access what we might think about as traditional mercurial fields. Rather, it's the approach of how people engage those fields can be sometimes completely different and strange. That's why I was so good at it, actually, because I just was doing my own thing. I was completely on my own sense of analysis. I didn't really, I had this kind of skill, this permission is one way to phrase it, to do things differently. That's what my Pisces Mercury gave me. So look for that. As the moon comes here into Virgo, there may be different approaches to how you want to do things. It may be more, soulful in a way with the fire sign Mercury, more impassioned and free to let go of this need to be so precise and so restricted by the detail and the organization. So that's how we finish out the week. In terms of lectional astrology or something like that, yeah, maybe we don't want to engage with the Mercury in Sagittarius ruling the moon as a kind of best energy. That's why I picked the Cancer moon. So let's shift now. Let's get these charts of the week. 2 charts, let's analyze them. First chart, 23rd November 2021, 2 a.m. here in Central Europe where I am. It's a lovely Cancer moon. Wow, I love this chart. The waning energy, the letting go, the comfort, the homebody senses this. Healing after the lunar eclipse. It's particularly nice to have this energy. And just check out what's going on in the sky here. Look, the thing I'm locked in on the most, again, cardinal signs, so supported right now with the lunar nodes, Saturn and Mars, not impinging on those cardinal signs. And so all year I've been enjoying these cardinal transits when Mars hasn't been too engaged with the hard aspect. So we get another one of these here in November, late November. And, mothering, protection, safety. So eclipses can demand we use our mothering side. I have that written here, that as things get odd and strange, we really do have to mother ourselves and nurture ourselves or those in our midst. And I've said a lot about that already, but know that our own mothering side can be utilized here. Mothering ourselves, mothering those around us, mothering strangers, like I go around, I see people when I buy things in my neighborhood and stuff. Am I gonna be that kind of loving mothering energy? When someone says, "Hi sir, what would you like?" Am I gonna send that invective or that kind of harsh or demand? I don't think so. I think this is a good time for a mothering vibe. Like, "Hey, how are you?" Maybe even sending without saying it, you could kind of send an energy of giving people good vibes. My phone's been vibrating a few times during this video. Sorry about that if it was disruptive, but resting, laying down, the shell protection. I saw a video this week of an octopus squeezing a shell around it underwater to kind of just go into that safety of the shell. Cancer is the crab, right? You have a shell of protection. What's your shell this week? What's going to be your shell during this transit? Get settled into it and rejuvenation, convalescence. Sleeping, they say, is when the body actually repairs the organs during the sleeping process. So, I just think that's an analogy or a metaphor for how Cancerian energy with the shell, we can repair and get ready for the other 11 signs that are way more dynamic and outer oriented, maybe, especially the air and fire signs. And again, we have a lot of fire energy coming in this week. So these pockets of a shell protection of convalescence that this Cancer moon can provide, use that this week. The next thing I just wanted to point out here, it's opposite Venus. This is why I like it so much. And Venus now will have just entered its Egyptian terms here. I think it's just happening right now. It might be there now, but will definitely be there here on Tuesday when this chart is shown. And so you've got a strong Venus. You've got a dignified Venus in Capricorn. Not only is Venus in Capricorn the day triplicity ruler, but it's now in its power degrees. So there's something here with using this kind of shelled convalescence of the Cancer moon with the Venus there, sending its rays and exchanging aspects with the moon. And I have here Venus in Capricorn itself is about safety in relationship. Setting aside the moon's sense of safety, you've got this Capricorn Venus that is protected and kind of, falling under the protection of a Saturn, so that the love can be supported. And what do I have here? Slow, deliberate, humdrum, reliable people. Sometimes that's the best love. In fact, I think about my friendships, people I love, and often it's like, this is the guy that I spent, 10 years seeing a few times a week. And yeah, our politics went completely the opposite direction. The choices and values have shifted or turned, but there was always this shared, regular contact of, love and shared time together. And I can trust the person. I know how they're going to be. There's a deep, intimate knowledge so that it's safe to be there. It's a person I could probably say, listen, this is what I'm going through. They'll receive that and give feedback and advice. Reliable, safe people that are in our lives that have developed over long periods of time. See, that's the best kind of expression, I think, of a Capricorn, of a Venus in Capricorn. Now it's dignified. And so I think you can find those people, use those people as a part of your safety net early this week. You might want to get into a show with someone else, or have moments where you can share about what you need and kind of take care of people that are around you. And the other thing about this chart, you get the trine to Mars. And so these two planets of relationships, Mars and Venus, are in a sextile right now. Mars is strong, dignified. Venus is strong and dignified. The moon is dignified. Those are the three planets of the night sect in the ancient system, the kind of nighttime parts of our lives when we retreat from the outer world and we have relational activity, Mars, Venus, all of the intimacy that those planets bring. And then the moon, the safety that can come from those things. Of course, Mars is there. Relationships are often the source of our greatest joy and our greatest pain and difficulty. But I think the Mars in Scorpio supports even this, how safety can be a necessary condition to talk about difficult things in our relationships. That's all supported right now. It might be the time to share, hey, I'm hurt by this, or even if it's not romantic, but just like here's my pain, and let people receive it and kind of love you. This is the kind of cocoon of safety that's highly supported by this symbolism as we wane here. And what did the lunar eclipse trigger? Maybe there's processing that can be done. I know I'm processing stuff. I can't wait for this. This is going to hit in less than 24 hours, this Cancer moon. And I think it's perfect. I can't wait for this to kind of heal, tend to our wounds, tend to others and tend to our wounds, using all of this powerful relational symbolism of the night sect. All right, let's shift here. Oh, quickly, I got this at 10 degrees. It's applying to oppose Venus. I like that in the early degrees here. It applies and gets those rays from Venus. Try to find that. You can get the Libra rising as well. So the ascendant is ruled by the dignified Venus, and then the moon is ruled by Cancer. The moon is in Cancer, the sign that it rules. So there's a lot of nice things to like about this chart. All right, let's shift. The final chart I want to look at this week is Mercury and the Sun, now in Sagittarius. I picked Mercury entering Sag because the Sun, we can talk about them both here. This is really about both the Mercury and the Sun, that we'll do some delineation of both of those. But I picked here Wednesday, the 24th, 1636, 4:36 p.m. here in Central Europe. They're now both in Sagittarius, Mercury and the Sun. Outward explorations of ideas and spaces. I went into a lot of this earlier, so I'm not sure how much time I'll spend here, but feeling out what eclipse season is bringing. I think this might be a good time to get a little curious and get a little bit of, maybe even movement. I know I always say eclipse season is about settling in and not doing much. I think that's still true, but there's a kind of juxtaposition or a kind of tension with this Sagittarius energy. So you might be called or pulled to read a book or to engage with ideas or really maybe learn some things. There's ways to be both active and passive simultaneously. I think reading a book is that. You're taking something in, but the imagination is triggered, and we can kind of go to different places and spaces mentally and emotionally when we read. But maybe studying something, watching a lecture. These are all kinds of things that aren't too high risk in terms of hard action, but they are kind of impassioned expansions. These things are kind of supported. Now, feeling out what eclipse season is bringing. Maybe there's a sense of, okay, this is what my story is going to be about. It's coming together now with the Sun and Mercury and Sagittarius. Insert here everything I talked about earlier with the writing and the kind of blending of consciousness and detailed analysis with the Mercury signifying that. But again, this Mercury can be unleashed in ways that maybe it's not used to experience, things it's not used to experiencing. Like let yourself run free a little bit, unconstrained, writing where you don't have to fit it all on between the lines on the page. This kind of stuff can be very much the Sagittarian energy here with Mercury. And remember, Jupiter supports both of these planets now. It's making the sign-based sextile. All of the transit for both Mercury and the Sun has ruler Jupiter in this supportive aspect. And we can use this. It's, again, the building of what's coming next year. At the end of this year, we're now energetically leaning and stretching towards this kind of expansive moment, the ending of 2 cycles, like I said. Sagittarius eclipses end, the South Node in Sagittarius ends, and then Jupiter's time in Saturn-ruled signs ends. So this is a very optimistic week and period. All of Sagittarius season is like an optimistic injection of Jupiterian energy that will pay off very, very soon. And the story of Jupiter gets really good, and there's a growth towards anticipation is the term I'm looking for. We can sort of start anticipating here some really awesome stuff that's coming next year in the winter and spring, particularly this April pileup in Pisces. I won't talk much more about that here, but there's an epic Jupiter and Venus in Pisces event that happens in April that I think this is really what we're kind of reaching towards. It's actually coming back from the future. It's sending back energy and kind of pulling us into it. Neptune, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars, all in Pisces, the 4 rulers, modern, traditional, exaltation, and triplicity, all convening there in a very rare, really once in a lifetime, once in a several hundred-year transit. So this is what I see, this anticipation and hope that is implied this week with Sagittarius and all of Sagittarius season with that sextile exchange with Jupiter. Finishing a larger cycle, so there it is. I just transitioned to that, and there it was written here. The last thing I'll just say, Jupiter in Aquarius is only for another about a month. We're finished, so I just mentioned that, again, written in my preparation. This is what I've already said twice, the double cycle. I've got it written here. Venus and Mars, this is the last point. They're averse to Sagittarius and to Aquarius. Not Mars squares Aquarius, but Venus and Mars are both averse to the Sun and Mercury during this period. You will have some anticia with Venus and the Sun and Mercury. Minor touch point for like a day or half a day, but basically there's an aversion between these 2 relational planets, right? Venus and Mars, the planets of relationships. So I think some of this expansive integrative optimism, there is a sense this week, especially when the moon leaves Cancer and the moon is maybe in fire signs, or particularly this Leo moon, where maybe we're not as focused on relationship because of the aversion of the 2 relationship planets to the Sun and Mercury. What do I have here? So it underscores how important the moon in Cancer is to maybe doing some relationship stuff the first half of the week. I have here that the Venus retrograde, that we're now in the shadow period of Venus, is the degrees that Venus will retrograde. Sometimes that's also about disengaging in relationship. Direct kind of expansive relational activity, and it's more about review and pulling back and going inside and kind of taking some time off, you might say. And I think that it's the kind of like when you take time off from relationship, or what are you doing? I think you can think about these other parts of life, like where's your Jupiter? Where's your kind of the idea sets and worldviews you have, maybe not so much as with other people. It's good to sometimes review our own, what we're carrying, so to speak, independent of others. That's some of this Sagittarius, Aquarius, Jupiter sextile energy that can be activated here too. We don't always have to be out around others. We can pull back and take breaks. Hey, I need to take a break. let's meet back here in a couple of hours, or, you know, with your partner or loved ones. Hey, let me take a few days off or a few hours off away from you. You know, that can feed the relationships, the separate time. So I think that's another part of this whole moment. All right, let's shift now. That's the weekly astrology. Let's pull the weekly tarot. Let's get that tarot card, that final symbol here to analyze. We've got okay, let's see here. Interesting. I've had the same card 2 weeks in a row. The 5 of Diamonds. I don't think we got that this week, but let's see here. It might be another diamond. This is it's the 6 of Diamonds. I knew it was right around that same part of the deck. So it's interesting. 5 of Diamonds, 5 of Diamonds. Now we get the 6 of Diamonds. In the tarot systems, the cartomancy systems, there is one way of reading where you just take the numbers of the cards, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They go to 10. The pip cards, the non-court pip cards, the pip cards. I think the court cards and the pip cards are separate. The pips are the 0 through 10. The courts are the kings, queens, jacks, and knights. And then all of those together are called minor arcana. So this is the minor arcana pip cards. When you have the numerology with them, it's sometimes very cool to see the numbers going in order, in ascending order. It means we're growing. And so just for this video, this video series, we're like moving forward. It's kind of nice to see that now we're hitting a 6 from 2 weeks of that 5 of Diamonds. Reward is the card, Moon in Taurus. Right away, this is where the moon was eclipsed. And so this is really cool to see, because like eclipses, they're kind of scary sometimes. People like to fear around them. I hope I haven't done that. I think what they're really getting at is the changes that they bring, and sometimes change can induce fear. Oh no, I'm gonna have to let this go. But there's rewards that come with it, that change, and it's always useful to think about where eclipses are happening and when they happen. As we emerge out of eclipses, what did we learn? What did we gain? What kind of senses were renewed and empowered? Because, you know, I have to believe we're in a divine universe. There is divine power, this encasement in love I was describing. You know, I believe there is loving kind of forces that are trying to help us, let's say. And that's what eclipses are, ultimately. It's the upgrades that something is trying to give to us. Maybe you could say our guides. I think about it as maybe these sort of divine uber powers that maybe, you know, this is a whole series of videos or books about cosmology and divinity and what is God or the gods. There's all different theories about it. But I kind of like the Advaita Vedanta or Gnostic view of the divine spark, that we each have a shard of that, and that it's connected to some kind of grand divine force. And so I think it's benevolent. So we think about these eclipses bringing these rewards. This is a physical. Diamonds are physical, monetary rewards. Physical in terms of the body. Again, the moon. This is the decan of the moon, the body. So, you know, maybe it's underscoring as well, not only this lunar eclipse, but then this transit of the moon in Cancer. This is the place that the moon is exalted. This week we have the moon coming home. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, really use that Cancer moon to love yourself, reward yourself for getting through that eclipse, nurture yourself with whatever you need to rejuvenate and revitalize. So that's the weekly astrology. That is the weekly tarot. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking this video or subscribing to the channel. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep these videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.